Just yesterday, Fallout 76 got what will likely be one of its biggest updates for several months now, very realistically until we actually see the Wastelanders update come out, and also one of the biggest updates we've had for several months, so a pretty monumental moment if you're following the game or even actively playing it. And even though there is a lot going really well with this update, there's also a lot wrong, and it actually highlights some of the worst parts of this game currently. So in this video, I'm going to talk about all of that. What exactly got added in, what's new and what's good about it, but also why I would say this is a very problemsome update and is a little bit tainted by the game overall. If you guys enjoy the content or just want to see more around Fallout 76, you can leave a like or subscribe. There's actually going to be several additional updates over the next couple of weeks, although smaller, I still will be covering them. But otherwise, with all that being said, let's first take a look at the main addition with Fallout 76's new update, and that is Vault Raids. So Vault Raids have been long anticipated. Vault 94, 96, and 63 have been in the game since release, but up until now, you couldn't really do anything with them, at least not legally. So the first major addition of patch 12 is now when you actually go to Vault 94, you will have the option to engage in a Vault Raid. These are high-level experiences meant for 4+ level 50 players, and even though we've heard things like that in the past, I would say this time it's actually pretty true. Although you definitely can solo these with the right builds, these raids in general are very, very difficult. So how do these actually work? After assembling your team, you can go to Vault 94. If you don't have a full team, you'll probably just find a bunch of people hanging out outside that will be willing to play with you, or probably looking for a team in general. But once inside, there's a couple of steps, a couple of messages you can listen to, but otherwise you could get into the vault itself and have the option to choose the difficulty mode. So the difficulty mode around these vaults is actually very important. There's a novice difficulty, which allows you to run through the vault on just an easier setting overall. There are no concrete time restraints, so if you don't finish things in the allotted time, it just gives you the option to reset and it won't kick you out entirely, but it won't actually give you access to some of the new armors that are added in with this, which are only earnable on the standard and expert mode. As far as standard and expert goes, the big difference is now there'll be time constraints for each section of this vault raid. On standard, they have one restraint, on expert, it's a slightly shorter restraint. And if you don't complete that section in the allotted time, you just lose. That's it. So it's typically a pretty good idea to actually give it a test run on novice, figure out how things work to some degree, which we'll touch on, and then go on to one of the higher difficulty modes, where in the higher difficulty modes, you actually gain access to some of those valuable armor plans that you can't get anywhere else in this game. But regardless of what difficulty you're on, this vault is broken up into several stages. In the first room, it's actually pretty simple. There's a bunch of ghouls and Mirelurk queens. You'll have to repair all of the pipes in the room, but then you'll gain access to the next room. This is definitely the most straightforward and easiest, and probably the one you've done the most since it's right at the start. The second room's a little bit more complex. Just like the first room, you'll initially be tasked with repairing various pipes, and you'll just be running around doing this. After you hit the allotted amount, you actually have the option to continue repairing pipes in all of these various rooms. This will give you minor time bonuses. It seems like it's a few seconds here and there, which can be actually very valuable. But then in the second room, after you repair all of the pipes, you're going to have to gain access to this room. In this room, you'll gain access to flood control passwords that you need to use later on. The gist being, you can't actually just get in there. There's going to be a variety of keys hidden around here that will give you access to several other rooms, such as maybe you'll find a council key. In the council, maybe you find the workman's key. In the workman's room, maybe you find the nursery key, and then finally you'll actually get the password that's required for this door. So it's typically a several step process. You'll be running around looking for these keys while fending off enemies. But one, the location of these keys is constantly changing, but two, even further, which order you have to go in is also typically changing. So it adds in a little bit of variety on replays. From there, you'll get into the Reactor Room. This is without a doubt one of the most difficult and frustrating, where I've ended up failing the most, and you probably will too. So there's actually several different things that could happen here. Depending on which playthrough you're on, you'll get something different. During one stage, you're going to have to find all these little items around the room and put them into various things, like putting in interlocker keys into the reactor, then swiping certain key cards that you had to find on the ground somewhere. This will typically be a 5 or so step process, and it doesn't hold your hand during it, or at least not always. always. Sometimes you're just going to be running around trying to figure out where exactly that next part is or where exactly to put the part you found, and that's what's going to eat up some of your time. But then there's actually a separate process of hitting buttons in a certain order, and this one's kind of interesting. Basically, there's no quest markers involved with this at all. So after restarting the reactors, there's going to be a terminal entry listing off the 6 steps you have to do. And this is where microphone communication and teamwork really come in handy. You have to do these in a certain order, in a certain amount of time. If you go out of order, it'll reset your progress overall, and you basically just have to look at the terminal or take a screenshot of it to know what to do next. This is the part in particular that can get super frustrating, because if it says the condenser room, there's about 10-15 different rooms in this vault. You just have to know exactly where that room is and find it and hit the right button, and then do it 6 more times. And this is another one where the order on this is always changing. Which rooms you have to go in will vary from one playthrough to another. But after actually completing this, things do get notably easier. Then you have to go into the utility wing using those pump control codes you found earlier, and this is literally going to be a note in your inventory. You have to insert the codes into 4 different pumps, fix some more pipes like all the other stages, and just fend off some of the enemies along the way. But once you do that, you'll be entered into the final area where you have the final boss of this mission. And that's actually going to be the Strangler Heart. So the way this final part's going to work is basically there's going to be a ton of enemies all over, spawning what seems like pretty consistently. And again, these are high levels like the rest of the vault. A lot of level 95s will spawn here with the occasional legendary. In order to actually attack the Strangler Heart, its mouth must be opened. In order to make its mouth open, somebody has to be standing near it. But when you stand near it, it releases highly radioactive gas, making it kind of a challenge. Then after you do finish it off, you will win this mission, get some of your rewards, and in fact, in the next room, there's actually a little chest where you could loot a 3-star legendary. And it seems like this is actually a guaranteed spawn. You'll get a 3-star legendary every single time. And just completing this overall, again, there's a lot of really high level enemies. You have to without a doubt be well equipped because these are tough foes. If you manage to complete this on standard or expert difficulty, you will get the plans for one of these new armor pieces. Effectively, the way these are going to work is once you actually get all 5 armor pieces and have the requirements to craft them, you'll get a unique set bonus. As you can see at the top here, this is just one of them, but it seems like there's actually 3 separate ones in game right now. It's not totally clear if you could earn all 3 of these variants here, or if you actually have to wait for the 2 additional missions that are coming next week and the week after, but I'll touch more on that in a moment. But something else you should notice on these plans is it actually requires Vault 94 steel to craft. This is a new crafting component you could only earn by completing this vault raid. You could earn it on any difficulty mode, so even on Novice, but you'll get the least steel on Novice with only 2, and more as you go up in difficulty. Also, you can only earn rewards once per day, per successful completion. So even if you grind out the Novice version 5 times, you'll only actually get rewarded 1 of the times per 24 hours. And just to be totally clear as to how difficult it actually will be to get the full set, take for example just this one armor piece. This is the one plan we happen to unlock by a higher level clear. It requires 11 Vault 94 steel, and this is again just one armor piece. You're going to need 5 of these to actually craft the entire armor set and get the bonus. Hypothetically, that is 55 steel in total, and if you only get 2 to 3 per clear, it could take you over 20 clears to actually construct an entire armor. So I wouldn't expect any full sets of these to be running around anytime soon, although one other aspect that does seem pretty pertinent, it looks like you actually get a automatic 3-star legendary when you craft this. So you get the set bonus, but also seemingly 3 other bonuses, so almost like 4 stars in total. And yeah, all in all, this could be a very lengthy process, taking 20-30 minutes plus, depending on which difficulty. Obviously on the expert mode, it's shorter because you just don't have as much time. It definitely requires teamwork, coordination, and just all around, I would say it's a great addition to Fallout 4. This is true endgame content. You'll burn through thousands of rounds of ammo to successfully complete this. For the first time since I've owned this game, I had an event where genuine teamwork was required. If people don't have mics, you'll really struggle to finish this one. This is the first event ever added to the game where I actually went in and took different perk cards, messed with my build a little to make it so I was well equipped enough to handle this. You'll see an onslaught of level 60 plus and sometimes level 95 enemies, and it gets really difficult. And also this carries several cool byproducts. As I mentioned, you have to care about your build a lot more, which just makes it a lot more fun. But even further, player trade is definitely seeing a boom as a result of this. You're gonna need a ton of stim packs, RadAway, ammo, and just every other item you use in combat. And the first place I've been looking are player vending machines, which are now scattered across the map. I've seen way more activity here, and it's actually a really cool community building aspect and just giving that feature a lot more value. I've seen some complaints online about the vault raids being too difficult, and yeah, that's kind of the point. The end result is most times not going to be worth whatever effort you put in or resources you used, but it's a great endgame feature. You have some of those typical rewards like caps, items, and legendary items you could get from this, but also some of those unique rewards, the vault raid armors that you could only get by completing these. It is some of the first genuinely difficult content this game has seen, and it's actually a lot of fun to do this with 3 others. I would say during certain stages, like especially that reactor stage, some tweaks could be made to make it a little bit more fun, but as far as the vault raid concept itself goes, I think it's an amazing addition to Fallout 76, adding in a lot of great things, and I hope it's something we see continued. As I mentioned before, this is just the first mission. Come next Tuesday, they're actually going to cycle it out for a separate mission, so that'll have a totally different set of steps and requirements, and potentially maybe some different rewards also, although that's not totally clear, at least as of right now. So there's going to be some variation each week, and I really like that. It's definitely something I'm going to be coming back to. But even though the vault raids themselves are pretty awesome, and I'm personally a huge fan of them, even if at points it can get kind of frustrating, I just don't think Fallout 76 is actually ready for this type of content. Fallout 76 is renowned for having stability issues and bugs. The main difference being 95% of the time, a simple reset or restart would fix that issue and you'd lose next to no progress. But when you have these high stakes vault raids that are limited time and very hard to complete, then you actually do have quite a bit of consequence from encountering one of those issues. As many of you guys did see, I actually did a live stream with several other YouTubers trying to complete this vault raid. In the process of actually trying to get the team set up and complete the raid, we encountered like literally 12 to 13 different deliberating bugs. There's a lingering issue in Fallout 76 where when you go to add a friend, you just can't. You could click the button, but nothing will happen, requiring a restart. Meaning so, before we even started the stream, all of us had to restart at least once, and it turned what should have been a 2-minute process into like a 15-minute one. At one point while trying to complete the vault raid, we first just encountered a total server disconnect. There's actually an ongoing glitch that I don't want to give too much publicity to, but there's a way to just crash the server around this vault raid, which is naturally pretty bad. That's definitely fairly game breaking. At other points, we actually had 2 of our members encounter fairly game breaking glitches. One where they couldn't use their Pip-Boy anymore. That would typically be resolved by easy disconnect or a restart, but when in the vault raid, you can't do that. At one point, someone else just crashed, and as he was the team leader, he was just gone, and it kind of glitched out our vault raid and made him start his own separate one. There certainly should be a way to rejoin the instance if you get disconnected, so you don't lose all of your progress and then kind of doom the other 3 players, because it's hard to complete with 4 people, let alone 3 people. There's a persistent and ongoing power armor glitch in Fallout 76 where if you exit your power armor, sometimes you'll just be stuck in the floor. You can't move, you can't do anything unless you restart the game or disconnect from the server, something else you can't do in a vault raid. The quest markers during these raids are just ridiculously inconsistent. During numerous parts of this, everyone on my team had quest markers that would direct them to where they had to be, but I just didn't. That obviously gave me a huge handicap, and I had to follow people around or ask them where to go next because I didn't know. This was to the point where at certain points I couldn't tell if there were supposed to be quest markers or not, if it was just variation from one playthrough to another or just the glitch being that persistent. There's also been some lag or server side issues where you'll attack some enemies and their health will just not go down or regenerate, or it's just clear that attack didn't register. When you're literally trying to save seconds to complete this vault raid, that becomes way more impactful and way more frustrating also. And just speaking broadly, if you encounter any of those glitches on the expert run or even the standard run where time is such of the essence, it could be pretty deliberating and actually just ruin the run overall depending on which one you get. Even though I was able to go through and fail at the vault raid without experiencing any bugs, there are several other times where one of these bugs popped up, ruined the run, and just destroyed all of our progress. So oddly enough, it's kind of this weird position for me, at least right now, even though the vault raids are fun. I think the content, the concept of them is really good, and I hope they stay with the game. It's like the game's not mature enough or bug-free enough to actually handle that type of content where consequence is high and time is limited, which just creates a very frustrating experience. Hopefully, we start seeing some bug fixes around this. Several of the bugs I mentioned actually aren't new. They've been around for weeks, known for a couple of weeks, and just didn't get fixed for some reason. The social ones in particular. I was talking about that in my last patch video, and you would think before adding in a majorly social feature, you would work to resolve that so I could actually accept a team invite or add a friend as we're trying to play this new co-op content together. And just one other thing that's worth noting, for some reason the NPCs in the vault actually give you like no experience. It seems like Bethesda drastically nerfed how much experience is given just for the vault NPCs, which is kind of just weird to me. I don't feel it's appropriate to get 15 experience for killing level 95. That just feels wrong and should be changed. Although, fortunately enough, the vault raids weren't the only part of this update. Outside of that, we also did see the addition of display cases. These are actually kind of a cool feature, but they also do have some caveats. Display cases are just freely placed down at your camp. They will use up camp budget. Unfortunately, we didn't see an extension or growth of camp budget, so if you're full already, you're kind of screwed now. You have to delete some stuff to use these, but otherwise they're kind of what you'd expect, looking pretty similar to what we saw in Fallout 4, and you could place all kinds of things in them. But there's a couple of oddities around these. First and foremost, you could actually place power armor frames in them, which is kind of hilarious, but at the same time, did no one test this? But at the same time, there's something weird where if you actually use an item from your stash and put it on one of these display cases, it'll occupy part of your camp budget. So you'll see the display case itself uses up camp budget, but then also when you equip an item, but that item is also still using stash space. So if I want to show off my 50 cal, it's using up weight I have in my stash, which is fairly limited, but also the limited camp budget to display it, which is another one that just has caused a lot of frustration for various people. The perk card system in Nuclear Winter saw an overhaul. Now you actually earn a perk card pack every level instead of every other level, how it worked previously. And if you do get a duplicate in that perk card pack, you'll get some tickets. Now there's a little shop where you could see all the various perk cards you haven't unlocked yet, and you could spend a certain amount of tickets to get those. The higher level ones naturally being quite a bit more expensive, but this also means it should be a bit more linear. As you're leveling up, you could figure out more concretely what you want to unlock and how long it'll take you to get there. The Charleston Capitol building actually saw a rework. The courthouse now is lower level and separate from the Capitol building itself. The Capitol building's a bit higher level, and each saw some minor modifications, but something interesting, in the Capitol building itself, it's actually now a pretty good farming spot and definitely something to check out. There's a lot of high level ghouls here, and you'll probably have a decent spot at getting a legendary. Morgantown also saw some minor exterior reworks to go more in line with some of the quests there. It's nothing major, and it's not nearly on the scale of the interior rework it got a little while ago. Now in game, you could actually have more caps, 30,000 in total rather than the 25,000 you could have previously. Although cool, it's still not nearly enough, and most people trading at that level actually don't even like caps. They prefer to have barter trades of one item for another. At the Berkeley Springs train station, now there's actually an atomic shop guide that you could just walk up to gain access to the atomic shop. Funnily enough, this one in particular actually pissed a lot of people off. You could always just access the atomic shop from your inventory just by clicking on the button, and it would just open there. So using the guy at Berkeley Springs is way less convenient considering you'd have to be there in person, but it's just kind of a weird change to the game. As you could probably see during the Vault Raid, a really cool quality of life addition is actually now when you see a quest marker visually on your screen, it'll give you a description of what that quest marker is for. This is really handy when you have multiple of these on screen at the same time and just makes questing a lot nicer. Some kind of stealth change that seems to have made it into this patch is certain items now actually have a weight associated with them. Meanwhile, in the previous versions they didn't. Mainframe cores and atomic roller balls are the two that have been identified. This is notable because you might have just had a ton of these in your stash and now find that it's overweight as a result of this change, because before there was no disincentive to just stacking them or hoarding them. Another really great addition by Bethesda is they actually made it so previously bugged challenges should be mostly resolved. So if you log in and just get a ton of atoms all at the same time, it's because you probably completed some of the challenges in the past but it never registered. remastered. It's not totally fixed, but it definitely is a step in the right direction, and it also seems like Bethesda did a bit of an oopsie. Now you actually have the option to place down this future tech globe that, one, looks just really cool. Everyone has access to this, despite the fact that it's meant to be an Atomic Shop item, but it's actually not even live on the Atomic Shop yet. So hey, get it while you can. Again, it is actually a pretty cool one. Outside of that, they actually did just an in general balance pass for Nuclear Winter, changing some different stats for certain things. The weight on some of the weapons was changed, and I would say actually improved. Some of the overpowered stuff like the Tesla rifle was nerfed. It's definitely positive changes. It's a good step for that mode, but it's still lacking kind of a new content drop, a bunch of new stuff actually improving it. The new map is just a few weeks away now, so hopefully that'll be a bit of a revitalization for the mode. Bethesda finally also removed the top 3 leaderboard widget from survival mode. Technically, they removed the feature a while ago, so if you logged in after that, it would just say test. It's like they removed the feature but forgot to remove the leaderboard, so it's just kind of sitting there doing nothing. But now the leaderboard is also gone, thankfully. And something else notable, there was actually some new additions on the Atomic Shop, several of these looking really cool, especially this new power armor. It's completely overpriced and I definitely won't be buying it, at least not yet. But something else interesting around this, as of late, Bethesda's been getting flack for their bundles on the Atomic Shop. They've been having this recent trend towards creating a bundle, let's say the bundle's $15 in total, and several of the items in that bundle you could only get if you buy the entire thing. And oftentimes those are some of the coolest items. With these new releases, they actually didn't do that, but what they did was make everything not in the bundle ridiculously expensive. The bundle itself is 1,800 points and actually includes all of this, but if you wanted to buy each of the individual pieces and don't want the bundle overall, it'll actually cost you 4,000 points, which is kind of insane. Like, I'd get it if the individual pieces were a little bit more expensive, maybe a few extra 100 points, but it's more than double the price to buy things individually. Like, if you look at the value, if I was to buy this power armor alone, it's just a no-brainer to buy the bundle. Unfortunately, it's all pretty overpriced in my eyes, so I'm not going to buy any of it, but it is kind of a weird approach they're taking. I guess this is their response to people being upset around bundles. Either way, that's pretty much going to wrap it up for this one. As I mentioned, it was a big update. A lot of new stuff got added, some of it really good. Unfortunately, again, I think Fallout 76 just needs some fundamental improvements to make it a little bit more usable. As always, again, I thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.